everyone, this is Mzaz Wankam Shafiq to take you through themes in the history of East Africa since 1871 to the present. So, today I want us to look at what we call the Trans-Saharan and the Indian Ocean trade. This is a trade which boosted after the coming of Islam into East Africa. And we are going to look at the background of these two kinds of trade, and then we shall see what makes the Trans-Saharan. It got its name after the place where the trade was conducted from, Trans-Sahara, from the Sahara Desert. So the Indian Ocean trade also got its name due to the fact that it was carried around what we call Indian Ocean. So we are going to look at the explanation which is going to help us to understand more about these two types of trade. So the Arab slave trade, established in the 8th century to the 9th century AD, involved the small-scale movement of people, largely from the eastern Great Lakes region and the Sahel. So, Islamic law allowed slavery but abolished slavery involving other pre-existing Muslims. So, as a result, the main target for slavery were the people who lived in the frontier areas of Islam in in Africa. So the trade of slaves across the Sahara and across the Indian Ocean also has a long history, beginning with the control of the sea routes by the Afro-Arab traders in the 9th century. So it is estimated that only a few thousand enslaved people were taken each year from the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean coast. So they also sold throughout the Middle East. This trade accelerated as the superior ships led to the trade and the greater demand for labor on plantations in the region. So eventually, tens of thousands per year were being taken on Swahili coast. So the Afro-Arab slavers captured the Bantu people from the interior and brought them to the trading center or market centers, or to the trading masters, the littoral. Are we together? So there, the slaves gradually assimilated in the rural areas, particularly on the Uguja and the Pemba highlands. So here they are trying to explain to you the background about this trade, and they are trying to show you how it came into existence from the 8th century to the 9th century, and how it was stretching. It covered the bigger areas. It involved the movement of traders. So the Arab slave traders and the raiders used to attack different Bantu groups, and after attacking them, they used to capture some people and they take them as slaves. And this was due to the heavy demand for labor, whereby different slave dealers wanted to take Africans as slaves in the countries that had interest in them, the countries that had the interests in them. And these were going to work as the plantation helpers. So slaves were taken. They used to pick those bodied boys, bodied men, and beautiful girls. They were taken as a reward to the slave masters. So the Trans-Saharan trade and the Indian Ocean trade. This trade involved the Africans actively participating. Even African leaders, the chiefs and the kings, heavily participated in this kind of trade. They used to surrender Africans that were like, for example, they used to get those people who used to misbehave in the society. They used to get the youth. They used to get those bonded men. So kings also were actively involved in this kind of trade. So it boosted at the coast of East Africa due to the heavy demand and the activeness of different chiefs. Look at Mirambo. So here we are looking at the trade that involved the Swahili people. After, I remember we looked at the background of Swahili, which came up after the strong amalgamation of Africans, the coastal women, with the Arabs who came to trade with these people in Africa. So this changed the slave relationship by creating new forms of employment by slaves altogether. So, and creating conditions for freedom. So when Pemba, after establishing the trade centers at Pemba, this changed the slave relationships by creating new forms of employment, whereby slaves became workers for the foreigners. Slaves became workers for the slave masters. People used to be taken on several on different plantations to clear, to harvest. At the end of the day, these people even gave birth to new children. Actually, they gave birth to children where they were taken. Some ladies were admired by their masters and they impregnated them. Actually, if you look at the United States of America, black Africans were many there, but many of them, they were deported after the outbreak of Industrial Revolution. But in the 19th century, way back in the 19th centuries, Africans were taken as slaves, both in the Indian Ocean and the long distance, plus other kind of trades. So the trade, so because because of this trade, the children of the natives were taken away, and this affected the locals at home. So we say because of its small and gradual nature, the impact on slave trade practices in communities that did not convert to Islam was relatively small. So remember, they used majorly, remember, according to Islamic law, it emphasizes, it was encouraging Muslims to enslave the non-Muslims. But it was discouraging non-Muslims to enslave Muslims. So because of the less impact of Islam on several African societies, this also limited the development and expansion of the trade. Are we together? So the size of the total slaves traded grew to large numbers of the multiple centuries of the centuries of its existence altogether. So because of its small gradual nature, the impact of slavery practice communities did not convert to Islam. Why? People hated the religion. Why? It was the Arabs that were enslaving them. And still, they were the same people calling upon these people to convert into Islam. So people hated the religion. People hated the Muslims, and they ended up not converting into Islam because of their active participation. So in 1800s, there, the slave trade from Africa to Islamic countries picked up significantly altogether. When the European slave trade ended up in around 1850s, the slave trade to the East picked up significantly, only to end with the European colonization of Africa around 1900. That is when even Uganda ended up falling into the hands of the colonialists. So Zanzibar was once East Africa's main slave trading point, and this was so when a man called Saidi, who transferred his capital from Muscat to Zanzibar, due to the Busaidi struggles and due to the persecutions at home, he came and strengthened the market. He established a market at Zanzibar. This acted as a trading center. Traders used to get slaves from distant areas, bringing them, they settle them, or they bring them to Zanzibar, where they were later all picked. So Zanzibar was once East Africa's main slave trading point, and under Oman Arabs in the 19th century, as many as 50,000 slaves were passing through the city each year. So this is the time when even the volume or the number of slaves that were passing through the area increased. So we have the Atlantic slave trade. So the Atlantic slave trade or the transatlantic slave trade took place across the Atlantic Ocean from the 15th century through to the 19th centuries. So the Atlantic slave trade or the transatlantic slave trade was significant in transforming Africa from a small percentage of the global position of the global population of slaves in 1600. So into the overwhelming majority by 1800, the slave trade was transformed from the marginal aspects of the economies into the large sectors and relatively short span. So, in addition, agricultural plantation increased due to the slaves. Slaves, when they were taken, they worked on different plantations, increasing pressure, increasing the production rate in terms of agriculture, because these people were working hard day and night in order to satisfy the demands of their masters. Altogether, so a lot is being said about these two kinds of trade. I beg, when you check through the notes we have there with us, learners, you should take time and then go through as we generate our own notes concerning these two kinds of trade. Then we shall look at the effects of slave trade and slavery on Africans, and these are the following. When we come back, we shall go through the effects of slave trade. I beg to stop here. I wish you a good day. Adios.